ready to do this.
All right. Ms. Berry. Oh, Ms. Berry's absent, hello. Ms. Casper.
Present.
Ms. Flom.
Here.
Mr. Hammonds.
Present.
And Ms. Myers.
Present. Okay, do we have any public comments?
We had somebody who tried to make public comments and then scratched it out. Carrie Truver. Sorry, we're gonna have to take your first answer. You have to come up here and talk. No, we don't have it.
Okay. All right, Bart, let's hear it.
Honorable Board, we have a special guest with us here today. Normally when we do the superintendent spotlight, we have a video to show that highlights our students, their achievements, and today we're going to do something a little bit differently. So if you'll give me just a minute, I want to tell you about this special guest that we have. So at this time, it is my great pleasure to present this semester's Student Excellence Award winner. This award was born out of our school's dedication to cultivating academic success, social contribution, and leadership, and also to shine a light on those students who exemplify these characteristics. Before I present this award, let me tell you a little bit about our impressive honoree, Abigail Dawson. Abigail's commitment to her education and her passion for putting others above herself is what makes her stand out from the rest. Abigail has faced many challenges in her short years, from transferring schools multiple times due to bullying, being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and healing after a recent car accident. She has met these challenges head on and continues to work hard, all while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. But her perseverance is as impressive as her skill. She is a 3-time archery OSSAA target champion and 2-time Oklahoma Indoor USA archery champion. Listen to this list of honors. She is in the National Honor Society as the president. She is the Key Club secretary and founding member of Rotary International.
Oh my gosh.
Student council member. She is currently enrolled in Epic Collegiate Academy, where she will graduate from Oklahoma Christian University with an associate degree in May of 2024. She writes her own piano music and even gives free lessons to students who cannot afford them. She is involved in various community outreach projects through her school, her church, and other organizations. With her many achievements and dedication to her community, Abigail has kept a positive spirit. She consistently inspires others to overcome their challenges and is very much a live by example young woman. Although there are many applications each semester for this prestigious award, one name stood out as the clear choice for this semester's Epic Student Excellence Award recipient. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, it is my profound honor to present to you Ms. Abigail Dawson. Now, board, we're going to give you an opportunity. This is a treat because we don't get Epic students up here at our board meetings very often, and so when we do, we have to take advantage of that. So I'm going to give the opportunity for you to ask Abigail any questions you've got and give her an opportunity to respond to you. So I'll open it up to the board. Abigail, the mic is yours.
Abigail, hi. What is your dream future?
So that's a very good question. My dream future is definitely up in the air right now. I'm hoping to study strategic intelligence and national security at Patrick Henry College here in the fall. But it's really whatever the Lord leads me. I mean, you know, He's the main source of everything in my life. You know, the whole reason why I'm here is because of the Lord. So, you know, it's wherever He leads me.
Any other questions? One more question for me. So, could you tell the group here, one of my favorite questions to ask students and parents for that matter is, why Epic? What drew you to Epic?
So, this also a very good question. Epic was it began as an escape for me. I was heavily bullied, physically, mentally, and I was really at my lowest point, I would say 8th grade year. And Epic kind of it turned into an opportunity rather than escape. I was able to do things that I never believed that I could do. I was able to accomplish things I never could have accomplished in a public school. And I'm so, so grateful that I was given that opportunity with Epic. It has just completely changed my life for the better, so.
Yeah.
I want to say hi to her family too. Her mom is here, and then also her teacher, Miss
there's
Julie T,
Julie.
is in the back here. Please give them a round of applause.
Okay. I think we do have some committee reports. Let's see. Dina?
Yes, nominating committee met, and we would like to propose vote to add Mike Vella as an additional board member. If someone could make that motion.
We will do it on the next item,
Okay.
right after the reports.
Okay. And then did we have anything? So my understanding out of your committee is recommending that we add Mike.
Yes.
Okay. And then Trevor, did you have anything on the finance?
No.
Okay. We are on to item 2B, consideration and possible action on new Epic Charter School Board member to start 3-year term, April 1, 2024. I will move that we add Mike Vela to the board. I'd look for a second.
Second that?
Ms. Berry is absent. Ms. Casper,
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn,
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds,
Yes.
and Ms. Myers.
Yes. All right, this is going to be fun. Dr. Summers.
Well, first, I want to personally ask the board chairman if I can find another place on the agenda. Not following a great act that you just had. Great congratulations to the student. It gives you an opportunity for me. We talk about data a lot, and I obviously care deeply about the performance of the organization. But we sometimes forget that those data numbers aren't numbers. They're human beings. Each one of them counts very significantly. If you want to give a feel for that, is you take a 95% success rate for an organization like Epic would be phenomenal, right? But for the students that are in the 5% that failed, it could be catastrophic for their lives. So that's what keeps you moving, trying to get to that 100% that never actually is achieved, but it's something to aspire to. So congratulations to the young lady, and congratulations to the organization. I had the occasion to work with a few other schools recently, and I come away with continued awe at what progress you folks have made over the course of the years. And in particular, what I'm most intrigued with is the continued effort on everybody's part to think beyond where you are, even as you are right now, that you're not stopped or satisfied or believe in your own marketing, but to actually move forward. So let's take a look at what we're doing a little bit. Next slide. I wanted to start the conversation. We talk about Epic all the time, but I wanted to talk just a little bit about the state of Oklahoma and the United States in general. So let's start with the United States. This is an interesting little chart. I'd encourage you to look at it in detail. But basically, the top of the gray line is where they scored the year before COVID. The bottom, the little point where the little yellow marks come is where they started to recover from the COVID downturn. So you can see everybody kind of went down a lot over the course of the time. Here's Oklahoma, clear at the bottom, which is not good here in a minute as to why you're near the bottom. But the performance dropped tremendously during COVID. You'll notice that there's a lot of growth, some small, some large. Probably Mississippi is one of the larger ones, Pennsylvania. And that recovery is where the yellow line is. Now, I want you to take a look at Oklahoma. It had made some progress. It had made some progress over the last 5 to 6 years. But right now, as it sits at the third from the last in the United States. So why is that important? Well, it's important for you to know where we stand as a state and as a nation. There's very few that are above that have really made progress to return from COVID, and so that's a challenge that your staff faces. So when we have low performance here, know that it's universal, that there's challenges. But also it speaks volumes to the need for fundamental innovation and change in education in Oklahoma. And that's where you play an important role. I don't want the board to lose sight of the fact that you're working for your own students and your own staff, but you have some responsibility to try to connect with the larger state to move it along as well. Let's go to the next slide. We had one other one, I thought, but, well, anyway, I'll verbalize it. I did some work for EQA, the Education Quality and Accountability Office, and what we found was if you go back to the mid-90s and early 2000s, the state of Oklahoma, remember as you sat, you were at about the 3rd percentile in the United States. About in the late 1990s and 2000s, when you look at NAEP scores, you were in the top 25% in the country in Oklahoma. So what in the world happened? Well, what we find is Oklahoma never moved forward. The other states moved past. So where you once were very competitive as a state in academic achievement, you now fall behind, not because you got worse, but simply because other people got better. And that's an important feature for you to think about as we work through it. Speaking of getting better, here we are in January. We see the gray line. The gray line is the one that we're trying to make move, and the gray line is still ahead of the past years. We have made some adjustments to the targets because, unfortunately, the state average is where we're shooting for. Well, the state average came down, so you don't have to go as far. I told Bart that I couldn't put the actual state average in or you would be past it by the time you ended the year. So we beefed it up a little bit to give you an aggressive number around this 35%. If you'll recall, it was normally 45% passage rate. So still making progress, a little slower this month, but that's consistent with what we see in the engagement, student engagement, and there's some work underway to make that fixed. Next slide. Reading, math, yep, back up one. Same thing, only you'll notice that in math, we really are about where we were last year, so that's a challenge. Math is a tough area for a lot of students. So again, we're still ahead, but we're still struggling a bit to keep ahead in this category here. I would expect that to move, and Justin and his team are working really hard to make that process successful. Next slide. You'll see that we're getting an uptick, starting to move on student engagement. Student engagement is highly correlated with those scores that we just looked at. The holiday section is the ones that are missing because obviously there's no engagement, formal engagement during that period of time. Next slide. This is the report. This is what you had laid out in your Carver governance policies as to what you wanted measured and reported, and that's what part of what I'm doing here, and part of what Justin's doing, and part of what we work on every month, is to produce reports that match with what you wanted. We just wanted to show you a slight shift. If you go to the next slide, with your change in eliminating board meetings, we've moved all of those materials around so that you have the same reporting but at a different time schedule. And with that, that's what I've got for you. Questions, comments? I want to go back to the beginning. Data points are data points, but behind each and every one of them is a human being that you have to care deeply about. And I have to tell you, it's nice to be with a school district that actually keeps its focus on that issue and taking good care of students. And you've seen the results here today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are back to Bart.
Here's an interesting statistic for you all to consider. Last year, our special education percentage at Epic Charter Schools was around 17%. We just received word that now we are above 23%. And you think about that on a 28,000 kid base, how to jump that many percentage points in 1 year. So it goes back to what Bob was talking about, which is behind every data point and every number is a name. And I think that clearly what we're offering Oklahoma families is resonating and still growing to this day. We're still receiving new applications every single day at Epic Charter Schools. So we're going to go through our superintendent report, if you guys don't mind to pull it up for me, for February 15th. So we start with our 5 aspirations, and I think you're going to see some of these aspirations lived out in these upcoming slides here. So here's our enrollment dashboard. Take a look at where we were last year at FQSR, 27,898 students. This year, right now, we are just knocking on the door of 29,000 kids. I bet you by tomorrow, we will be at 29,000 students, and so it would not shock me, obviously contingent upon attrition, to see us around 30,000 students by the end of the year. So, and we're seeing this in our website as well. Rob did a fantastic job of sending some data that we looked at on a month-to-month basis, and the Epic homepage, like where people land, is exponentially higher than where it was last year at this time. So when you do a year-over-year comparison, I mean by the tens of thousands. And so clearly, you know, parents are looking for alternatives, students are looking for alternatives, and teachers are looking for alternatives. And so I think we're very poised here to continue to see the growth trend that we're seeing right now continue. Let's highlight our principles for standards mastery. So Bob talked about the importance of math and ELA. And so let's look at our ELA formative completion. Leaders, Sheila Sanders at the OKC Mid-High, Angela Kill-Mendoza and Trishelle Raymond. ELA formative mastery, which is what Bob was talking about, Sheila Sanders, Trishelle Raymond, and Teresa Morley. And then math formative completion, Sheila Sanders, Camille Franzio, Angela Kill-Mendoza. And then for formative mastery at the Tulsa Mid-High, Jeff Upton, Trishelle Raymond, and Angela Kill-Mendoza. And that's one of the best predictors. Bob's right. That's one of the best predictors of how our students are going to perform is, are we teaching the standards, are we measuring the standards, and are we mastering the standards? And so that's what we're tracking on a monthly basis. And right now it's trending well, and I know Justin's getting ready to get up in front of the board and present on some of the trends that he's identified as well. Let's take a look at the next slide. So community service. So you can see that you know, one of our aspirations is building and supporting the community is evident in all aspects of EPIC. So in January, students volunteered at the Little Lighthouse in Tulsa, a developmental center for children with special needs. And they provide special education and therapy services for children from age 0 to 6. And we had a large turnout of student and parent volunteers who came to spend time in the classrooms with the students, and it was a beautiful morning that taught all who came the power and joy of community service. I'm so proud of our students and our parents for giving up their time. So truly are giving back and meeting that aspiration from the board. Next slide. The Hugs Project, another example of giving back to the community. So thanks to the support and active participation in the Epic Hugs Project, we were able to build more than 200 amazingly full and packed with love care packages to send overseas to our military heroes with sincerest appreciation. We wanted to say thank you, and there's Charlotte Conway in the middle there. She is ran point on that for our family engagement department, but you can see the wonderful work that our students and staff have done. Learning Center. In the back here, there's Ms. Michelle Ponticos and Ms. Kim Nelson, who run point on our learning centers. So we always want to give an update on that. So at the OKC Mid-High Learning Center, social study teacher Michael Bishop reviewing 8th grade student presentations. There's a sneak peek right there. And it said his 8th grade students have been studying the U.S. Constitution and the formation of government. So in order to synthesize the information, students have worked in groups to design and create governments for fictional countries, and they will present this to the class, and after all the presentations are done for the entire 8th grade class, they'll select a government system under which they would like to live. So that's taking learning and turning it into life, and it's really taking learning to a whole nother level, and so really excited to see the work that's being done at the Learning Center. I think we may have one more slide with our learning centers. Yep, there it is. So ACT prep, so of course springtime, anybody that has high school age kids or has had high school age kids knows that ACT is coming down the pipe, and college applications and scholarships and all things like that. So the OKC Mid-High Learning Center juniors have been studying to prepare for the spring ACT test. In fact, I saw we've got, I think, our last Chad Cargill virtual ACT prep session coming up here in the next week or two. And so we've definitely been hitting that hard, and hopefully the students will be scoring as well as they possibly can. Next slide. Healthy habits. So this is something that Dina had brought forward last month and asked a really good question, like what are we doing for students? And so we recently filmed another episode of Healthy Habits, the activity spotlight at a Bungee Fitness gym. It has a great time showing Epic students how sports can be different, and so we're thrilled about the upcoming book walk during the Literacy Day at both Glenpool and Norman, and also stay tuned for details on the first ever Epic Color Run. But one of the things that Dina asked about was like, what are we doing outside of just competitive sports and our basketball team? Like, what are we doing to make sure that we are meeting the health needs of our students? Because I think, one of the things that virtual online learning can provide is an environment that is safe and conducive to learning. But if you're not careful, you could have these little ones behind a keyboard or an iPad for hours and hours upon the day. And obviously we know that screen time is not always healthy in bunches. And so what can we do as an organization, specifically with our family engagement department, to engage our families across the state? We're in 77 different counties. So how do we engage students? And so our communications team put together a wonderful video here, Dina, to answer your question, what is going on here? So Dina, this one's for you. So we'll show you what we've been up to.
The point of Healthy Habits is to get students and their families engaged in activities other than just sitting in front of a computer, because our students are tied to their computers a lot. I'm Marcia Martin, the Healthy Habits Specialist here at Epic Charter Schools. My job is to get them out, to get them doing physical activities, to having fun, to see that physical activities can be fun. I also do a Healthy Habits cooking show that's on YouTube, where we provide students and their guardians with recipes that are nutritious, healthy, easy to make. We do everything from breakfast items, snacks, lunch menus. Some of the physical activities that we do include field trips that I take students on. We have climbed Robbers Cave. We went to the Recplex in Ponca City. We did rock wall climbing, dodgeball on the trampoline courts. We have done bowling in Lawton. I am in the works of planning a 5K color run for this May, and I'm really excited about that. It'll be the first ever Epic Color Run. Once a month, we put out a fitness challenge. It's a calendar that 1 month we did squats, we've done planks. February is gonna be wall sits. So I also do something called an activity spotlight, and that was where I take 1 to 5 students and we go to an activity that is not a traditional activity. Since we're not a traditional school and we know that school can be different, we also know that activities can be different. So we go to places like Ninja Warrior camps and bungee fitness classes. We work with the trainer at the facility or the gym, and we learn how to do those activities. And then we do a spotlight and we air that to show other students and their families how they could find something similar in their community to get involved in. I also do mental and kind of emotional awareness weeks. We've got one coming up in February where we're doing Kindness Week, which falls on the week of Valentine's. The importance of these weeks are to let students know that they can be kind, that they've got people to reach out to that will be kind to them. We want to let families and their students know that EPIC cares, and we're here for them, and we want to not just engage the nutritional child or the physical child, but we also want to encompass the emotional child as well. We want to bring that in and get a whole wellness child together.
Bravo.
Very good.
I will say, I texted Bart the other day. I was at Mount St. Mary's where my daughter goes, and I was working the concession as part of our requirements. And I come out and I look, and they're playing Epic Charter School, and we're losing. The girls' team got hammered by Epic. Congratulations. It was very good.
It's very good.
Yeah, it's great. It was.
Excellent.
Go Epic.
Very proud, very proud. No, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. That's it for me.
Well, that was great.
Yeah, that was fabulous.
I'm
Thank you.
excited.
I am too. Thank you.
It looks like we can just push straight through, but does anyone need a break for any reason? All right, well then, I would like to, I really can't wait to hear this next part, honestly. So we're gonna hear about the financial audit, and I don't know who's presenting. Okay, there he is, okay. All right, Jake, let's hear it.
Get ready when you are.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenzie Duarte. I'm a CPA and partner at Arledge. And with me today is Jake Winkler. He's a partner as well at Arledge, and was involved in this year's audit, and he's been the lead partner in the previous years as well. As I'm sharing the report, so if you guys can see that, I'm not sure if you do have the packet with you guys, but on their report, the biggest difference we'll see from previous years is that this year we'll only have one set of report, right? And that's due to the consolidation of the blended and 101 to one school. And now we make reference to that as just the schools or EPIC altogether. So it's just one report this year. The report, when we think about the report, I usually like to think about it in three different sections. Essentially has the financial report section. Then we have the internal controls, what is also known as Yellow Book, as well as a single audit. And we'll go into those here in a little bit. But this year's report, we do have a adverse opinion on the financial statements, and the reason for the adverse opinion is on the financial statements that was prepared on the regulatory basis instead of the U.S. GAAP, the generally accepted accounting standards, and it is accepted by the Oklahoma State Department of Education. This basis is just another basis of accounting that it's accepted. It's been that way in previous years. You see many schools using that same basis of regulatory basis. What's the regulatory basis? Essentially, it's the cash in and out, so the cash receipts and cash disbursements with certain modifications to the report. We go a little bit more in detail in note 1 of what those modifications were. However, on the regulatory basis of accounting, we do have an unmodified opinion. And we can see that on the paragraph, fourth paragraph. And in other words, what that means is a clean opinion, right? We do perform our audit under government on the generally accepted auditing standards. And under those standards, we are required to be independent of the school, as well as maintain and meet our ethical responsibilities. Some of the other auditor's responsibilities, we goes more in detail on the 5 bullet points on that second page of the opinion letter of the financial report. And it just goes over a few other auditor responsibilities that we had to meet throughout our audit process this year. With that, the financial statements, they look pretty similar to last year's. There's really not a big difference this year to the report, not on the statements or on the disclosures. We did make notice and call out the consolidation, right, of the reports of 101 and blended into one report this year. And that you can find out on the first paragraph of note 1A. I also like to go over the subsequent events notes, and that is on page 18 of the report. And that is note 5 of the report. Essentially what that means is, were there any events after the financial statements were ready to be issued, after year end until the financial statements were ready to be issued? So from June 30, 2023 until the date of the financial statements that were actually issued. And was there any material transactions or activity that we believe that are important to bring up to the issuers of the readers of the financial statements? And there were none this year. I always like to go over that note just in case there's any events that are included in there. It's always good to point them out. With that, I'll move to the Yellow Book report, the internal controls. So essentially, that report, it is not an opinion like the financial report was. It's just a report. In the process of us completing our audit procedures, if we do identify any deficiencies during our process on internal controls, here's where we'll document them and include them. We're glad to announce that this year we did not encounter any deficiencies on the Yellow Book on the financial statements, and this is under the government auditing standards. The next letter is under the uniform guidance, essentially the single audit. And the reason there's a single audit this year is for expenditures that were above a threshold, $750,000. So every year that there's expenditures are over $750,000, it requires a single audit. I also like to go over the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and that is on page 25 of the report. There was a total of $38.5 million in expenditures related to federal awards received during the year ending in June 30, 2023. And we make an evaluation of that, where we are required to test major programs over those, right? And this year there were 3 major programs tested. It was a special education cluster, the Title I grants, as well as the Education Stabilization Fund under CARES Act. Those 3 were selected and tested as major programs this year. So our opinion under the uniform guidance is only relating to the programs that we are testing, the 3 major programs that we tested this year. The threshold to identify whether there were major programs or type A programs versus type B programs was $1,157,000 this year. That varies based on the total of the expenditures. So this year being there $38 million in expenditures, that was the threshold that distinguished the type A's versus type B's. Here we can see a summary of all reports, essentially, right? So we have the adverse opinion due to the other basis of the financial statements, preparation of the financial statements under the regulatory basis. However, there were no material weakness identified, no significant deficiencies identified, as well as no non-compliance noted, right? Under the single audit for federal awards, there was no material weaknesses identified and no significant deficiencies identified this year either. So, and where we did not encounter any, we did not note any deficiencies also on the compliance side of the single audit for those federal expenditures that we tested. And at the end of the report, we are required to report whether there were any controls on the internal controls or compliance findings, and we'll make note to the no findings were reported, as well as were there any from last year's, any identified from previous years, and we'll include the status here, whether they're in progress, have they been resolved, are they still being worked with. That includes the management response to those, where we can see that last year's findings were resolved this year. Those that were identified last year's, we have them as resolved for the status. That's on the financial statement report. I would like to go over the post-audit communication that is required for us. And in this letter, what we require to include is whether there were any significant estimates by management, whether we agree with those estimates, and whether do we agree with any of the management decisions. And we're glad to announce that this year we did not disagree with any of the management decisions. We did not encounter any difficulties while performing our audit. We also did not have any adjustments that needed to be included in the financial statement report for us to consider it to be material. As well, there was no other findings or issues that we encountered this year. So essentially this year, we did not have any findings or compliance or internal controls deficiencies that we identified. I would like to turn it over to Jake so that he could go over a few of the items.
I really just want to kind of highlight something that's, I think, pretty important here. Arledge took over the engagement back in 2020, and I believe we had 11 findings. And what we've done, I mean, I think what we've come from in terms of starting in 2020 with that engagement and then moving forward to 2023 and seeing that all the findings have been resolved, there's no adjustments, there's no compliance issues. This is major, major, major progress. And I think, especially for Janice, I think she needs some major, major credit here. Admittedly, when we took on the engagement, it felt insurmountable with the amount of issues and problems that we were seeing. We really go through and test. I mean, I think Janice and Carrie can attest to that. I mean, we dig through a lot. We test a whole bunch. And it's come up clean this year. We all the findings have been resolved. I mean, just major credit to the Epic finance and accounting team, because this was a task. It takes someone really, really caring to do what was done here. So just full credit to both of them for their commitment to making things better at Epic.
Oh my gosh.
With that, if there's any questions on the audit, we are happy to field those at this time. Hopefully somebody will be there at the camera to relay them to us, because Kinsey and I cannot hear anything.
I don't think we have any questions. I appreciate the level of commitment that you've had to this organization. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I would move to accept the financial audit as presented.
Second.
Ms. Berry is absent. Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom?
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
And Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that's all. It seems very nonplussed. Janice, it's all you. Thank you very much.
Do you need a break? Just 2 minutes.
Okay, hold on, let me see. Janice, we need,
kidding.
yeah, JK, 2-minute break. Okay, we'll be right back.
That should be December 31st.
Okay. Wow.
I'm like, who decided this was a good idea? I think it was me that put it in this order, but it's chronological, so the emotions don't get to count. In your packet, you have the financial statements for the period ending December 31st, 2023. Everything looks really good still. We had a fund balance at the end of the month of $61.5 million. Very few outstanding items thanks to winter break because we were closed. Everything was issued a couple weeks before the end of the year and cleared while we were on break. That's unusual. We usually have a few $1 million in outstanding items there, so unusually low. Revenues, almost 58%. Goal is 50. Expenses are sitting at 46. Goal is 50, so that's healthy. Very good. And here is our chart. Looks about normal, about what we would expect. Our revenue was significantly different in December because we had a large federal claims deposit, and those come and go when they come and go. We file the claims, the state reimburses us. The federal funds most of them come to us through the State Department of Education in Oklahoma. So there was a big one in December. There's another big one in January. So you'll see that kind of as we're wrapping up those ESSER funds, you'll see those deposits start to come in. I did want to note last year on revenue, you remember there was no state aid in January or February, and then a half a year in March because we had the midterm adjustment that went way down from the beginning of the year. This year it'll be fairly flat. It's not going to go down. So you'll start seeing some big variances there starting next month in January. Expenses, trucking right along. We've been pretty even when you're looking at the blue lines across the year. I think that's healthy. We don't have those bonuses that swing us way up one month, which is nice for cash flow. And we're kind of settling down. Even compared to last year, the orange is still a little up and down here and there. We're kind of settling into a pattern, which is nice. I always expect July to be higher because of things we pay for one time, like property insurance we pay at the beginning of the year for the entire policy period. And we have some things that are quarterly, but it's pretty steady, which is so great if you're in the chair doing cash flow because it's more predictable and you don't have to worry so much. Cash flow has not been a concern because of our high carryover, but I still monitor it because it's important to have that information for future years when we don't have a high carryover and have the same style of expenditures. That is all I have for December. I'm happy to answer any questions on the financial statements that's presented or anything else finance.
And before you do, Braden's going to correct a Scrivener's error.
Yeah, just a Scrivener's error that it should read December 31st, and it might read December 13th. So if we could just approve as presented on December 31st.
So I would move to approve the financials as presented on December 31st, 2023.
Second.
For approval.
Ms. Berry absent. Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom?
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
And Ms. Myers?
Yes.
All right, Justin.
Okay, I'm not batting ninth, but I'm batting cleanup, we'll call it. So I got a few things to mention before I get into the actual update that I had to share. One, there's a lot going on, as I'm sure you guys know, in today's society. You know, there's a lot of violence, and a lot of violence that also happens in schools. But I wanted to share with the board that today is School Resource Officer Day, and we have some that are present, so I would like to recognize our School Resource Officer team, our security folks. been a great implementation into Epic, and while you don't know everything that they do, I just found something out in the back that's been going on for a while. It's that they do great things, and there's a lot of things going on with kids today that they are assisting with. So appreciate you guys and ladies. We talked a little bit about enrollment in Bart's presentation, and I just, something that I always go back to is comparing our net gain, if you will, or new students to what you might expect in a traditional school. Our average student to teacher ratio is right around 28 to 1. So each of our teachers has an average of 28 students. Our net gain average over the course of the entire year since August 21st, since the first day of school, we average a gain of 9 kids per day. Okay, some days that's 60, some days it might be -5, but for an average of 9 students per day, basically that means every 3 days equals a teacher. So constant influx here, and not a whole lot of people, not a whole lot of other districts have to deal with that, but that is something that we welcome them with open arms. So thought that was interesting to note. Now, going to the data, as Bob mentioned, some data quotes. I have a couple that I always think about. There's hard data, and then there's heart data. Okay, and then I always say, whether it's right or wrong, you can tell me, data paints the picture, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So, but it's the only way we have to track. We can't have Abigail's in here every day telling us exactly how their life is going, and we have 28,000 plus. So, but congratulations and job well done. Fall to winter benchmark update. Speaking of data, Bart kind of leaded into the fact that I was going to present some interpretations that we've made, but I couldn't do this without Michael Flory and his data folks. Michael and Kevin Johnson do a great job at providing us the data that we need to transition or pivot, as well as what we need to try to paint the picture. So appreciate those guys. So we're talking about mid-year growth here. We take benchmarks. We take a benchmark in the fall, we take one in the winter, and we take one in the spring. And what we try to do in the winter is analyze the growth that we've had from fall to winter, and then create a pivot plan for every student to try to get them closer to the finish line that they need to be to proficiency, or maximum growth, if you will, in time for the state test, which unfortunately we are measured by. So the measure that we're going to use in these slides, and the measure that we use to talk about growth, is student growth percentile, which is SGP. Now I'm not going to read it to you, but basically that compares them to their peers that tested at the same time as them multiple times. So growth of their academic peers nationwide, peers are in the same grade, have the same initial score, so first score, and have the same amount of time between tests. So we're trying to compare them to their peers in the same grade that also took a fall and winter benchmark. It's on a scale of 1 to 99, and what Renaissance, the company that we use, likes to say is at this point, any score between a 35 and 50 is what you're trying to achieve. So when we look at these, I would like to see close to 50, but we're going to be comparing year over year in these next slides. So the dark blue is last year's growth at this time, comparing fall to winter. The light blue is this year's growth. So as you can see in math, we're 1 point higher in growth than we were last year, so we're relatively flat. Reading, we're 5 points higher than we were at this point last year. So a lot of great work being done in reading, progress happening in math as well. Even as Bob shared in his formative mastery slides, winter looks to be a little bit tough for math, so we're trying to get over that hump. And this is school average here. Fall to winter average in math by grade level, okay? So again, dark blue is last year, light blue is this year. We're talking about math. So as you can see in grades 1 and 2 and 3, okay, we didn't quite grow as much as we did last year as an organization, but in grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, we did see growth from last year to this year. growth is occurring. We saw more growth, okay? More growth this year as compared to last year. Flipping over to reading, okay? Again, dark blue last year, light blue this year. A lot of growth in pre-K. And it looks like growth in all grade levels except for second grade. Second grade, that I would call that flat, being 1 point. But again, our growth this year is looking to be a little bit higher than our growth last year, comparatively speaking. So we're excited about that. So we say all that to say, well, what now, right? I mentioned that we do pivot plans, what we like to call pivot plans. Basically, we had mini PLCs, we call them, where each team of teachers met with their principals and MDIs to discuss where we go from here from the results from these benchmarks. So it's not just we're testing kids, oh yeah, well, you grew, let's move on. We're looking at the gaps. We're targeting instruction. We're trying to determine what they need in order to move forward to the best of their ability. So these benchmarks essentially create the roadmap. Last week, we had over 260 instructional administrators for we'll call it a mini winter retreat downtown Oklahoma City, where we shared best practices. We had a lot of great conversations about what great teachers do and sharing those thoughts. And it was a great mid-year pick-me-up. This was the first year that we've done it as an organization, to have an administrative gathering mid-year. And I was a little bit worried about the timing, if I'm trying to be 100% transparent, just stopping everything mid-year and taking a day. But a lot of the administrators really felt like it rejuvenated them to get them to finish the end. And, we kind of take for granted, I think, sometimes that we are virtual, and it can become difficult to be in person. But even just being in person sometimes really moves the meter and gets people re-energized to continue working better. We all work, right? So a lot of other things discussed in these PLCs. What are opportunities for improvement? Okay, so student engagement. That's one of the things in a virtual setting that's tough, is getting students engaged. Okay, students are working from home, or they might be working from wherever they're currently calling home with our homeless quote-unquote population. Maybe they're at a microsite. Maybe they're at their job and trying to figure out when they can work. Student engagement is key, and we feel like students that are engaged more often than they aren't perform better. Formative mastery, as Bob reports every single month, that's not new to you guys, the ELA and math slides. Those correlate to proficiency at the end of the year, and I'm very fortunate that those that I serve work extremely hard to get these standards mastered, not just completed, but mastered. And the great thing that I always look at is how much better are we than we were last year? How many points better are we than last year? So, and just a little bit about formative mastery. You've heard me say this before, but that's the thought of teach, assess, to make sure they grasp a concept, and then reteach if they didn't. Any questions about mid-year growth? I'm gonna change gears on you here.
I don't really have a question. I just really like the metric. I thought it was well presented, and I just like the work. It comes off simple, which lets me know how high level the work was, and just like getting a clean audit. It's seamless, right, to hear where you're taking the opportunity. It's just a natural, and that is just letting the team know that everybody's in a great pattern. It's really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think we might have mentioned that we were going last month, but we took 90 plus employees to the Future of Educational Technology Conference in Orlando, Florida, which was a lot of us. Okay, it was one of those things to where you walk the halls of these conferences, and if you don't see somebody that works from Epic, are you in the right building? We saw a lot of each other. There were 4 days of conferences, Orlando, Florida, one of the largest expo floors in the world. This is the second year we've taken this large of a group. Last year, I think, was a little bit less. But a lot of things that we've learned while being there is you want to talk about cutting edge? Epic. Like we're sitting in room breakout sessions led by folks that are talking about how to implement spreadsheets or things that are so 2005, and we have folks that are automating. It's amazing the feedback that we get from our own employees. So 2 years ago, the feedback was, we could teach some of this. We could present some of these things. So we did. We had 5, Lord, this is where I hope I didn't forget anybody. We had 5 presentations shared by Epic employees. Carolyn Baker, Removing Roadblocks to Efficiency with AI Tools. Gretchen Clarkson and James Megna, who are both here, Harnessing the Power of System Integrations. Michelle Ponticos and Kim Nelson, who are both here, Transformational Teaching Through Blended Learning. Heather Anderson, Unlocking Knowledge, Gamifying Learning with AI and Escape Rooms. And then Beth, Roger, and myself, How to Be an Innovative District, where we talked about our innovation process. And let me tell you, folks were engaged in each of these and almost amazed at what we do, how we can do it, and the buy-in that we have from the folks that we serve in terms of employees. So it was great. And then I asked for everybody to send me pictures. A little bit of disclaimer here, you won't see a picture, I don't think, of Beth and Roger because they weren't excited about any of the pictures that were taken of them. But top left is Carolyn, you probably really can't see him. Top right is Gretchen and James. Bottom left is Heather. In the middle are Michelle and Kim. And in this bottom right, myself. So it was a great time. We learned a lot. And again, being in person, there were a lot of networking and relationship conversations that happen even outside of the conference to where things just get done. So questions for me?
I think the mid-year, again, I think it's another motivational piece. I'm really glad you did it. And I can't stress enough how much I enjoy hearing about the stretch, of the team. And I know it takes a ton of effort. Y'all are just incredible. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Is it Roger? Yes, it is.
It's me. Good afternoon. I am here to kind of set up RDI, Resource Data Incorporated. These guys are trusted software development partners with us. We've worked several years with this company. They do phenomenal work. We're very happy and pleased with their work. There are currently 5 teams that are working on various projects with us that include AI for the Enrollment and Records Department, Learning Fund software, Grades Passback, and then tons of back-end integrations between different systems to make systems talk and share data so that we get better reporting and we just get better functionality from these different pieces of software that are out there. Today in particular, we have Will Mock, who is a technical lead who works with Gretchen and Beth on a routine basis, probably on a daily basis. These guys are talking. We also have with us J.R. Rodenius, who is the database technical architect. He's here to discuss a proposal that we have for you guys. It's in the consent agenda. This is to upgrade and to rework our underlying base software in order to prepare for future developments. It's almost like the structure that our software is working off of needs a pretty big change so that we can leap forward and move to the future. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to JR.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger, for that introduction. So I quickly want to paint a picture of your current environment and explain, give you a good idea of what that looks like and how we plan on transforming that. Closer? Okay. So this diagram represents the operational software ecosystem that is Epic. So within this ecosystem, you have 63 total systems that are all interconnected using 398 workflows. That's represented, all these lines are individual custom applications that take data from one system and deliver it to another system. Within your combined record set, you have more than 42 million records. That's student, teachers, classes, assignments, grades. To move all of that data from one location to another takes more than 300,000 executions of these workflows, running for a total of nearly 5,000 hours per month. It's a lot of data to move. The vast majority of this management and the runtime and executions around the grades. There's a lot of interconnectivity with classrooms, teachers, students, and grades. Your current environment is a collection of external applications that are used to manage context-specific information. Each application does something different. The custom integrations move data between these services are really based off of timing. It takes a certain amount of time to move, to pull information from one system before another system can utilize it. So we have a series of scheduled tasks that do that. The current environment uses or utilizes a dispersed data structure, and the functional foundation is divided among all your various third-party services. What we're proposing is to take the current structure, which is a monolithic workflow system, and break that up into individual tasks that are easily managed. And it's going to give us better ability to move data quicker between systems. Sorry, I skipped ahead. In this implementation approach, we don't want to disrupt any of your current operations. So we'll be incorporating new systems alongside ongoing integrations through incremental system enhancements. The goal here and the overall effective change is that we're improving the responsiveness and efficiency within your cross-system integrations and then bringing you scalability for future growth. With that, I'd like to open it up for questions. I know this is technical, and I'm not sure I've done a great job in a short period of time to explain exactly what's going on.
I'll start with a question. So, I mean, just based on what I've seen, would a fair analogy be maybe to that of a vehicle? And the fact that over time, with advancements in technology and security and things like that, that over time, that vehicle can become outdated. Is it fair to say that the architecture that we inherited, coupled with the advancements we've made over the last couple of years, has sort of run its course, and that from an architecture standpoint, we need a new vehicle? Would that be a fair analogy?
The analogy is accurate. Another way to look at this is that the problem that you have is not unique. In fact, it's most common among companies that grow rapidly. You have a series of issues and problems that you want to solve quickly so you can see the benefit immediately. The trouble is if you don't have a long-term goal of knowing exactly where you're going to be 10, 15 years down the road, you don't necessarily take into account the growth necessary for that. And so you solve the problem immediately, that works for now, and it works until your car becomes outdated. So.
Thank you.
I think, how long has your company been at this, like doing this work?
So, Will, how long have you been working within integrations?
About 2 years.
Okay. 2 years.
The resource data we engaged, what, 6 years, correct?
And
So-
I think like what I'm thinking about is like how quantum the growth is and how hard it is to predict growth at this scale. And considering like that we're already looking at probably AR for most of how we're going to interface with school, I just want to, you know, to have everybody thinking about what's next and then, and how will we accommodate that. And, you know, I just want to make sure it's very adaptable. So I actually love to hear that it's very fresh because I think that helps maintain that. We certainly don't want to create any systems that are, that lag in any way or are timeline dependent because we don't have that sort of wiggle room here. So that was really my main thing, is making sure that, you know, within the context of the capacity of this team, which scalability seems to be the only real limitation. So that's what I want to see, very open-ended.
Yes. So the way I look at the analysis of these systems and planning for future growth is I don't just look at, in this case, your 28,000 students now and all the related records to that. Scale that out immensely. Build a system that works with 100,000 students, because what works in that scenario is going to work great for you right now. And that's going to handle all your future scales.
So the overall goal is to get reporting? Is that what I'm seeing here? Just, are we trying to, has there been
So-
any thought given to trying to preserve the legacy system and just move to a decision support system that is, I'm still waiting for the price tag.
The issue that we're trying to solve is you have a series of pain points that resolve around data moving through your system, being input in one system and being available in another. I've heard several times throughout the analysis of this project that if you if you add a new teacher today, you can't actually utilize them in the system to start assigning students to them for 24 hours or plus later. We heard earlier today that it was taking multiple days to see grades come out of the system. The reason that's occurring now is because when you have so many records to process and it's being essentially bottlenecked by antiquated methodologies, then it takes not just moments to process that data, but literal hours to process it. And then you have multiple systems that are linked together. So hours for this one, hours for that one, and it just compounds.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing to that. I think one of the complexities that our model has that most traditional schools don't have is choice. We offer choice to our parents. We have a variety of core curriculum, we have a variety of supplemental curriculum, and when you introduce new systems via choice into that ecosystem, each one of those systems begins to sort of drain that bandwidth as well. And so I think we're getting to a point, and Roger, you can probably touch on this better than I can, but where we're saturating what we currently have. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I kind of want to step back and figure out how we got here. So recall, in most, Ginger was, I think, the only board member when we went through the changeover from the CMO to the public board. When we did that, we were put in a position to have to move very fast. We had no software, literally, at that point. We had nothing. We had a proprietary system that was written, and there was a back-end system that did some of the things that JR's teams are working on. But we had to move very fast. We had to move to PowerSchool, and we were pretty much just putting things together as fast as you can. It's almost like we had a family that were out there that needed a roof over our head in bad weather, and we didn't have the opportunity to sit there and let's think about what's the floor plan going to look like for the future. We didn't have that luxury. We just had to put a shack over us and keep on going as best we could to keep the doors open. And so I think where we are now is a result of some of those actions. And I don't think there were bad actions because the school remained. The school grew through COVID, and we're sitting now with 30,000 kids and a clean audit, and we're rolling on. But the time came where the technical debt is the term it's used. Technical debt, because of the way things are built, you're going to live with this forever and ever, and it's going to be more costly to maintain the way things are going forward, as opposed to we're going to take this from the ground up, restructure it so that we can remove a lot of that technical debt and move forward with the current technologies. Yes, sir.
So,
Thank you.
Specifically, are you asking us, is this, the scope of work, is it stuff? Is it the working behind the scenes to integrate all the technology? That's what I'm trying to understand is like, what are you asking us to actually approve?
Yeah, this project is difficult in that regard because you're not getting a fancy new interface or program. You were exactly right. It's behind the scenes.
Okay.
This is about the underlying foundational code that manages the movement of data between all of your various systems, how it connects, what it does to that data along the way. You will see it, what you'll get out of it is you'll see it in the target system faster. You're going to be able to use it sooner. You're going to move more data quicker. So it becomes more available to everyone involved. Think about in terms of grades. I know that's one of your pain points. Your parents are going to be able to see the grades sooner than they do now.
Okay, so, and just, again, so I'm clear, the scope of work is essentially for labor. The idea is to make this work better. It's not a machine, it's not a widget.
Right.
It is the labor, and to the scope, what we would be approving is this idea, and then you guys how to get there. We're approving the idea and the funding to make that idea happen.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, you're correct, and it's the labor, yes.
Okay.
And I would add that a unique thing about the relationship we have with RDI is that all the code and the work that they're doing, Epic owns that.
Yeah, it's our.
That is Epic's. So if the situation came that there was some parting of ways, which I don't see anyway soon, we would own the base code. Most other systems, it's a pay-as-you-go kind of situation. That's not the case here, so I would like to add that.
And I mean, from my perspective of just seeing kind of what we were, I mean, you know, like if you have like a cup and a string and a cup up to like a fiber optic, and now we're going to go to, you know, something that doesn't require wiring, right? We're going to unscaffold ourselves because we can write it ourselves. So to me, like it makes a lot of sense, and I can understand why it would be needed, but I think that's more because I could see the restriction of the old system.
Bart and I have talked, and the best analogy I could come up with was the house, that you build a house, you know, and then you get 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Well, then you have twins, and you go, okay, what are we going to do now? In the heat of the moment, you'll add a bedroom onto the back of the kitchen because it's what you can do. And after a while, you have a floor plan that's just not very good, and it's difficult to get from one place to the other. It doesn't really work. So at some point, you have to say, enough. We need to really bring it down to the bare bones. Rework, you know, work with an architect to get a good functional plan for growth in the future, and then we build, and then we end up with something that can last the test of time and you know, propel that family forward. That's kind of what we're talking about here. So
Yeah, and I would add this. I think it's an indicator of the season of stability that we're in.
Yeah.
We could not have done this 2 years ago. We couldn't have done this 1 year ago. But I think we can all agree that the different indicators that we're seeing demonstrate stability and consistency that will allow us to begin to do this kind of work, which has been needed for a while.
And I think the authenticity informing the work is something that you're not going to get. You can't buy that, right? You can't buy being informed this directly by the population that you're working for, you know. So there's no way to get a superior product to that in my mind.
no, this is all custom built.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to FETC and you talked to people about doing a grades pass back, which is what JR's talking about, taking records from all these different curriculum and bringing that all into PowerSchool so that teachers don't have to manually go out there to that system and pull Johnny's grades and pull her grades and this long, all that work, that's all done automatically. Right now, it's taken 3 days to pull all that data in. We sat on a teacher's meeting at 11 o'clock today, and the request was, can you do it faster?
Yeah.
So even though it's a gain, you know, if we could do that in a day, but that's just one example. That's just one example of what we can do. This kind of opens up the avenue for more work, which RDI is working on, and it's just the beginning. We have a lot of ideas and future plans to continue, you know, with the software development, because it makes us all better. It makes us more efficient. And we've got other ideas that we will bring to you as the time comes.
I love that, 3 days, can't you do it faster, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a new
That was
dawn.
real.
We
It's
gotta
a-
move,
That was
you know?
today at
It's, the
11 o'clock.
expectation's legitimate.
It's true, it's true. But just to quantify that, grade passback is saving EPIC teachers on average 10 to 15 hours a week in grades that they used to do manually that's now automated. So that's 10 to 15 hours a week that they can be with students, not entering grades into a grade book.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Do we need to do anything on that
Nothing
station
on
of work
that.
right now? Okay. All right, so I'm looking at the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything they need to pull?
My questions were answered.
Understand? Okay. So then I would accept a motion to approve the consent items.
I actually do.
Sorry.
I don't know why I would move for discussion, item J, consideration and possible action on resolution for Ohio reimbursement election.
Okay.
So there'd be a motion to approve items A through AG minus J.
So moved.
That is an algebra problem that I cannot solve.
And I will second that.
We have double second.
Yeah.
Ms. Berry is still absent. Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flum?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
And Ms. Myers?
Yes.
And now discussion on item J.
What's that? Very simple, man.
It's
What is-
me.
what is-
Hi
what is that?
again.
Oh, hey.
So effective January 1st, 2024, EPIC is turning from paying all payroll taxes to the state of Oklahoma as Oklahoma employees to paying payroll taxes in the state, where a remote employee who's assigned as 100% remote, their place of work is the state where they live. And this was a legal determination from our legal team that we received in the fall. So we all agreed that on January 1st, we would start paying taxes in the states where we have employees working 100% remotely. So this particular one is a state that required a board resolution for our choice for how to pay unemployment compensation. In all states that I'm aware of, you have two choices. You can be a reimbursable employer, or you can pay a percentage of all employee wages in that state into the unemployment fund. And we have always chosen, and in my prior job, always chosen, to be a reimbursable employer, so we only pay claims that are made on our unemployment. So this is a declaration from the board, based on my recommendation, that we are electing a reimbursable account with Ohio for unemployment. So it will probably be zero, but if for some reason that one person that lives in Ohio and works there were terminated and there was a claim for unemployment, we could have a claim from them. But the odds are always in our favor to do reimbursable because we have so many employees. So
We're not supporting Ohio.
we are not.
Gubernatorial candidates.
No. Nope. And there's actually no expense tied to this. This is truly just an election
I
of
was just
choice of
asking.
method.
No,
Nope.
my due
It's a good
diligence.
question. It's a great question. If you thought it, somebody else thought it, right?
Yeah, I know. What would the common man think?
There you go.
That's what I know, yeah.
Yeah, so I would move to approve item J, consideration and possible action on resolution for Ohio reimbursement election.
Second.
Ms. Berry's absent. Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flum?
Yes.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Real quickly, I want to thank Deanna for, she had to adjust her schedule to be here, and we needed her for quorum, so we appreciate all you've done. Let you know that there is no March meeting, so our next meeting will be Thursday, April 11th at 2, and we will be welcoming a new board member.
Yes.
All
Second.
right. I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Berry's absent. Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Flom?
Yes.
Mr. Hammonds?
Yes.
And Ms. Myers?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.